Let's go over chainsaw clutch basics. So here's your drum on an MS290, which is that's what this kit's for. The drive sprocket is actually one piece with the drum. Sometimes these will be separate, especially on a still. You'll have a separate drive sprocket that's independent from this. It'll lock into it, but it's a separate piece. So let's look at this. So you got your drum, right? And then you got your actual clutch pack that goes inside of it. And then you have your roller bearing. Can you guys see that? Very good. So you have a needle roller bearing. Okay, that goes in there too. And that's what's going to turn and keep everything, spinning freely. So now on my 290, I have the problem. I'm going to discuss this in the other part of the video too, and probably show you. So as my saw is just idling, okay, it's just sitting there idling. I can set it down on the ground, and my chain's moving. Okay, so this thing is turning. It shouldn't do that. Your clutch should be totally independent. Let's briefly explain how a clutch works, and then we can go over the parts of what possibly is the problem here. So this thing, as you can see, it should spin freely inside of that drum. Now, centrifugal force, when you apply power to this, okay, these three plates, centrifugal force will expand them out. When they expand out, it will grab the drum, okay, and then the whole thing turns, which in turn drives your drive sprocket. So when this drive sprocket is turning, when it's just idling, we got something wrong in here. So now in my experience, this can be one of two things. I took it apart the other day. I didn't see anything off the bat, but I have suspicion that maybe in here, either the springs are broken, okay, and it's not contracting it back when it should, or one of these lobes is cracked off and just allowing expansion or enough movement that it's grabbing. That's kind of my prime suspicion, that it's just a hairline fracture somewhere, or maybe I just didn't notice the spring broke or whatever. I didn't see anything off bat, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. So I just ordered a new clutch pack, and let's just replace it while we're having an issue. Let's just replace it all. It's kind of what I'm figuring. The other thing that can cause that is this little needle bearing. If you get a bunch of debris in there, or it galls up, or sometimes, they'll hand grenade if you just run them too hard. But, so either that is the culprit, and that thing's shot, in which case the crank shaft, okay, so that's independent, right? And then this is fixed. It's fixed on there, okay? You can see it's threaded in there. So it's continually moving with the shaft. So now if that bearing goes out, or something's wrong with it, basically it's connecting the shaft to the drum, and then that would cause the drum to still spin. I popped the bearing out, and the bearing was totally intact. However, I did notice on the replacement, it's a steel housing. The 290 stock, bone stock, it was a plastic housing. So it might be a better product anyway, not a bad idea to change it. While we're doing it, let's just replace it all. But I have a notion it's actually going to be in these clutch plates somewhere. Somewhere a spring is loose or a lobe is broke off is my assumption. Because like I said, I had the needle bearing out, and it didn't look so bad. So that's kind of my assumption. But that's it, guys. That's all there is to a chainsaw clutch. I'll go through taking it apart and replacing it. It's not hard. It's easy. Just kind of be mindful of how things went when you took it off. Put it back the same way. But yeah, man, that's it. A chainsaw clutch, anytime you do a clutch job, if you're not mechanically inclined, it probably sounds pretty scary, but that's all there is, guys. Okay, you got your bearing, you got your drum. The bearing rides in the drum just like that. Your clutch plate goes on, and basically it just bolts all up in a packet like that. Done deal. You just replaced a clutch in like 10 minutes. That'll save you $150 at a saw shop or more. That's all there is to it. get this clutch off. So now in here, there's a little snap ring, okay? I don't know if you can see it. It starts here, ends here, and it goes around. So we're going to pull that snap ring out. Take a screwdriver. Okay. So there it is. There's a little snap ring. Set that aside. You can have a washer. Okay. Pull your washer off. Now you're going to pull off your drum. And all this stuff, guys, it should just pull off. Let's kind of look at it. It's a little dirty in there. I don't see anything that should really be hanging it up. But anyway. So there's your drum. Notice the drive sprocket on this one. The drive sprocket is part of the drum, just like the new one. Now you're going to have your clutch. Actually, first, you have this little needle bearing that I was talking about before. Okay. Notice this one has plastic. Yeah. So I don't know if it's probably an inferior product than our replacement, I would think. Set that aside. Now let's look at this clutch. So here's what I'm seeing. Spring attached. Spring attached. Nothing seems to be loose or broken. Spring attached. Spring attached. Nothing seems to be loose or broken. Spring attached. Spring attached. Nothing seems to be loose or broken. Okay, so that leaves out the springs, right, that I was talking about. So now let's kind of check the lobes here. I don't see anything moving out of place. I don't think anything there is cracked or broken. What about here? See, I don't think anything there's cracked or broken. Let's check this one. Everything seems really solid. One culprit could be, I guess. So when you guys give this thing throttle, centrifugal force, this is how this works. Centrifugal force forces these plates apart. Just like that, okay? Just like that. As they expand, they'll grab that drum. So that one's pretty tight. That one's pretty tight. That one's got a little slop in it. How come? Is there just crap in there, maybe? Maybe, huh? So, yeah, there's a little bit of crap in there. Can you see that? There's one little, like, wood chip in there. That might be the problem, guys. Actually, that fits way better now. So I say, everything I see tells me this clutch is actually good. Old, yes, but still pretty good. You look at the wear pattern up top. There's no big gouges or anything. I'm just worn evenly. I say let's throw a new needle bearing on it. We'll clean up the shaft here, right? Let's clean up that guy. Make sure it's nice and clean. We'll throw some grease on it. Add that needle bearing. Throw a little grease on top of the bearing. Throw the drum back on, and let's see what happens. That's what I think. Here's what we're gonna do. So we've kind of assumed already the clutch pack itself actually looks like it's in pretty good shape. So let's move our parts off it here a little bit. I'm going to take a towel here. We're just going to wipe everything good and clean. Okay, now you got a clean shaft. Okay, so I'm going to take some grease. I'm going to smear a little on the inside of where that bearing goes. Okay. Now, let's grab the new bearing. And again, I don't know if you guys saw earlier. Old bearing, new bearing. Cheap plastic. Looks like stainless steel. I'm willing to bet that's going to be a way better product for us here. Okay. So now we got some grease on the inside of the bearing. I'm going to put a little bit here on the outside of the bearing. Needle bearings, last I knew, and when I worked on stuff, I don't think I ever got too much grease in a needle bearing. Okay. Let's spin it around a few times, see if we can get those needles moving and rolling. Okay. All right, looks good. So now, I'm going to take my plate here. Hope you guys can see this. Again, I'm going to take a little dab of grease. I'm going to put it on the very inside, okay? I don't want it on my drum. I just want it on the inside of that shaft hole. And here's why. As I put this on there, it should, I'm going to spin it as I put it on, it should kind of push more grease up in there, okay? Make sure it's seated. So I got this guy, right, which is your keeper. I don't know, would it hurt to even grease it? I mean, really, it's just a keeper. I think the more we can keep it lubed and keep it free spinning, the less chain rotation that we should have. So let's try it at least anyway, huh? Okay, so we got that greased up, ready to go. Now we're going to have our C-clip. Okay, and that little C-clip I showed you at the beginning. Push everything up there. Put your C-clip on. Now, if you can do this without popping that C-clip up into the next county, you're a rock star. There we go. Okay, everything's in place. Okay, guys, so there you can see, well, I think you can see the shaft turning. This little spacer here, I mean, it kind of turns with it, but your drum is not. Okay, you guys see that at all? You see the tooth, the teeth on the drum?